Food safety is a critical concern in the hospitality industry, protecting both businesses and consumers. But how did legal liability evolve to hold food establishments accountable? This documentary explores the transformation of foodborne illness liability from early common law to today's more strict regulations.
We have by far the safest food supply in the entire world.
The safest food supply in the world.
Let's remember one thing. We have the safest food supply in the world right here in the U.S.
It's laughable. We don't have the safest food system in the world.
In the 13th century, England's Assize of Bread and Ale set the stage for government oversight of food safety. It established price and quality controls for staple foods like beer and bread, ensuring fair commerce and consumer protection. In colonial America, early food regulations focused on preventing adulteration and maintaining public health. However, legal liability was limited under common law. Consumers often bore the risk under the doctrine of caveat emptor, or buyer beware. Businesses were rarely held accountable for contaminated or spoiled food. The doctrine of caveat emptor placed full responsibility on buyers to inspect goods before purchase, meaning that sellers held no legal obligation to ensure that food safety beyond blatant fraud. This legal principle made it extremely difficult for consumers to seek compensation for foodborne illnesses. The early 20th century marked a turning point. The 1906 Pure Food and Drug Act, prompted by public outrage over unsanitary food production practices, highlighted in Upton St. Clair's The Jungle, laid the groundwork for federal oversight. It prohibited misbranding and adulterated food, creating a foundation for future consumer protections. Still, foodborne illness claims were largely based on negligence. Victims had to prove that a business failed to exercise reasonable care, an often difficult legal burden. Much of this legal reform, however, was driven by influential figures such as Dr. Harvey Wiley and Burton Howard. Harvey Wiley, known as the father of the Pure Food and Drug Act, led extensive research into food adulteration and advocated for stronger regulations. His work directly influenced the creation of the FDA and set the stage for modern food safety laws. Burton Howard, a key legal figure, played a pivotal role in reshaping consumer protection laws, ensuring that businesses could no longer hide behind ambiguous labeling and unsafe food practices. Their combined efforts laid the groundwork for strict liability in food safety cases. Legal responsibility shifted in the 1927 case of Ryan v. Progressive Grocery Stores, where courts first recognized an implied warranty in food sales. This meant food had to be safe for consumption, regardless of whether the seller had been negligent. This case was groundbreaking because it removed the burden of proof from consumers to show negligence, instead placing responsibility on food sellers to ensure that their products were safe. Ryan v. Progressive Grocery Stores set an early precedent for implied warranties in food sales, paving the way for future liability cases where businesses can no longer escape responsibility, based solely on a lack of intent or direct negligence. Another influential case was Webster v. Blue Ship Tea Room in 1964, where a diner sued after choking on a fishbone in her chowder. The case centered on the foreign natural test versus the reasonable expectation test, debating whether the presence of a fishbone in a fish chowder was a defect or an inherent risk of part of the dish. The court ultimately ruled against the plaintiff, arguing that a consumer ordering a regional specialty like New England chowder should reasonably expect the possibility of fish bones. This case set a precedent in food liability law by clarifying a food hazard is considered an inherent risk rather than a legal liability. Today, food liability laws extend beyond negligence. Under strict liability, businesses can be held responsible for foodborne illness even if they've exercised reasonable care. Regulatory agencies like the FDA and USDA enforce safety compliance through programs like HACCP, Hazard Analysis Critical Control Points. This requires businesses to identify and control food safety hazards at critical points in the production. Landmark cases have again shaped modern food safety laws. Liebeck v. McDonald's emphasized the importance of clear consumer warnings after a woman suffered third-degree burns from excessively hot coffee. Marler v. Jack in the Box in 1993 forced companies to adopt stricter food safety measures after an E. coli outbreak that led to several illnesses and fatalities. Schaefer v. JLC Food Systems further reinforced food safety obligations by ruling that food service providers could be held liable even if there were no direct evidence of negligence, strengthening consumer protections and increasing corporate accountability.
My name is Bill Marler. I'm a trial lawyer. My law firm, Marler Clark, located in Seattle, Washington, specializes in representing victims of foodborne illness. Even though I'm a lawyer, and even though I'm representing people and suing companies, that actually I'm also a food safety advocate. Here's my plea: put me out of business. For this trial lawyer, E. coli has been a far too successful practice and a heartbreaking one. I'm tired of visiting with horribly sick kids who did not have to be sick in the first place. I think
the accumulation of these cases demonstrated a shift towards rigorous enforcement of food safety laws, pushing businesses to be more proactive in preventing outbreaks and ensuring compliance with federal regulations. The tightening of food safety laws has led to significant improvements in public health. Businesses now adhere to higher standards of cleanliness, storage, and employee hygiene. Consumer confidence in restaurant dining has increased as a result. However, compliance comes at a cost. Higher insurance premiums, increased staff training, and the risk of litigation have made operations more complex, particularly for small businesses that struggle with regulatory burdens. Another key legal shift has been the emphasis on breach of warranty. Under modern laws, businesses can be sued for violating either express or implied warranties. If a restaurant serves food that is unsafe or contaminated, it may be found in breach of the implied warranty, meaning that the food must be fit for human consumption. This legal doctrine adds another layer of responsibility for food service providers, requiring them to meet stringent safety expectations or risk legal action. The evolution of foodborne illness liability highlights the delicate balance between business interests and consumer protections. While strict regulations have led to safer dining experiences, they also pose challenges for food service establishments. As food safety laws continue to evolve, the hospitality industry has to adapt to meet new standards while ensuring both profitability and consumer well-being.